Hey up everybody, welcome back to the Aldo Cycling YouTube channel, where today I'm going to be telling you who to put onto your Primus Classic teams. So Primus Classic, I've been looking at the profile, it looks a bit like this, and the best comparison I can draw is perhaps again Velogames, where the last climb is about 20 kilometers from the finish, a couple of cobble climbs in there, here's a start list. But who should we put onto our Velogames team? I think a lot of people will be favouring Mathieu van der Poel. For me, if you had to choose Van der Poel or Alaphilippe, I'd be choosing Van der Poel. For some reason, Alaphilippe just looked not quite at full form at the Tour of Britain. Perhaps that has changed now, but I think that this parkour definitely suits Van der Poel more with the flat finish and the quite shorter climbs. I definitely think that Van der Poel would have the better of Alaphilippe. I probably won't pick Nason. He just hasn't looked great all this year. I think he even said recently that he's overtrained. Stuyven I think is a good one because of how he looked at the Benelux Tour, and definitely building up towards Flanders at the World Championships. He'll be looking to be in some good form here, and if it comes down to an attack going or a sprint at the end, then Stuyven can do both of those. I think that's the main deliberation that I have, is what's this race going to turn out to be? Is it going to be an attack with a small group, in which case I'd want Van der Poel in my team probably, or is it going to be a sprint, in which case I might like a Ballerini or a Malia in my team as well. The safe option would be to cover both bases, of course. So Ballerini would be a good one if it's going to come back to a sprint. Tiesj Benoot I just don't really see being a great option. He didn't look great the other day at the Tour of Wallonie. Well, great, he came 10th. I'm not sure in what scenario Tiesj Benoot's going to win here. I think Malia would be a good one just because he has just looked really good since the Benelux Tour, won 2 stages there. Then there was the Antwerp Classic the other day where he came 4th in the sprint. Nizzolo I don't think is actually taking part, so ignore that. Seneschal will be a good one. Setman Mark is alright, but again, Setman Mark was working with Ben Hermans the other day at the Tour of Wallonie, so I don't think that Setman Mark is in the greatest of form at the moment. Looking down a bit further, Stibar I'm not a big fan of. Abbagioli this doesn't suit. Simon Clark it doesn't suit. Edward Turns could be a good plan B for Trek if Stuyven's not there. Danny Van Poppel for 16, he finished behind Malia in that Antwerp race the other day, so I think that Danny Van Poppel could be a good one. And you got some good 12 pointers here. Amy de Gent, Ugo Hofstetter would be a really good one that I'd suggest, because he's just looked pretty fast recently, and I think that he's probably the best option that Israel have, and he's also quite good over cobbled terrain. Miko Fullercanore is of course still in good form. Jenny Vermeersch came 4th in the Tour of Wallonie, the Grand Prix de Wallonie the other day, so I think he's a good one. 10 pointers I'm not a massive fan of, to be honest with you. Maybe Tom van Asbroek. 8 pointers, of course, we saw Tosh van der Sande looking superb at the Grand Prix de Wallonie the other day. He came 3rd. I think certainly depending on, there's a race going on today on the 17th of September that he's taken part in. I think perhaps wait and see how he's doing there. Of course, we've seen Valgren doing well in back-to-back one-day races. 6 pointers, I think, just because we're going to be having some high pointer like Van der Poels and stuff in here, it's going to be important to pick the right 6 pointers. I think that Stan de Wolf could be a really good one. If you watched the European Champs the other day, you will have seen that he was one of the Belgians in the second group, which contained like Mollema, João Almeida and people like that. I think that clearly shows that Stan is in some really good form, especially considering that terrain didn't massively suit him. He's probably the fastest guy that AG2R have, so I think that Stan de Wolf could probably be one of the better 6 pointers to go with. There are some other ones. One of them is Taco van der Hoorn, who's kind of back down towards the bottom. Jordi Meus could be a sneaky one if this comes back to a sprint at the end of it all. Who else? We've got Stefano Oldani. He's pretty fast as well, so is Gerben Tayson. And yeah, then you have Taco van der Hoorn, who of course came 2nd in that Antwerp race the other day, behind Van der Poel. So Van der Hoorn could be quite a good one, especially considering the terrain is fairly flat. There is 1 or 2 4-pointers that I do like. One of them is Logan Owen, who looked good at the Benelux Tour, and I recommended him the other day, but then he wasn't in the race, but I think he is in this one this time. So Logan Owen would be one of those who I'd recommend, and maybe Matt Walls as well. Of course, the Olympic gold medalist, winner of the stage of the Tour of Norway pretty recently. He's a fast sprinter as well, but of course they do have Mayus as well, so I don't know if they'd be going for Walls and Mayus or even Martin Lass as well. So those are my recommendations. In terms of team that you could go with, this is one that I'm looking at. You could also swap off Van der Poel, go with Ballerini, and then increase Tosh up to like Seneschal or something like that, so you got a nice strength and depth right there. You got pretty much 6 people there who could all win the race. I'd probably say that Stuyven is a certain to go on my team. I think that Merlier is fairly certain, and so is Hofstetter. I'm currently between Ballerini and Seneschal, or Van der Poel and Van der Sande. But other than that, I think that's about it. Danny Van Poppel would be another one that I'd be tempted to take as well. And if you didn't want to go with Hofstetter, then of course you could pick any of the other 12 pointers that I mentioned earlier. But I think in terms of team strength, probably Alpecin and De Koenig will be the ones bossing this race. So if there is going to be a move going up the road, it's going to be containing those guys, which is why it might be a good idea to have the likes of Gianni Vermeersch in there instead of Hugo Hofstetter. A bit like that. But anyway, that's about it for the Primus Classic. That's the round 20 for the Velogames Superclasico, and we're of course still building up nice and steadily towards the World Championships, which happen next week. All that is left to say is to keep your mask on, stay safe, and I will talk to you in the next video. Salut!